Welcome to this video, Growing Your Fan Base, Lesson 11, Tracking and Analyzing Key Metrics. The most important thing I ever learned in business was to know my numbers. But not just any numbers, the right numbers. What are some key metrics you need to be aware of in your music career? Well, here's some key metrics to keep track of. First, sales in dollars or whatever your local currency is. So just the overall amount of sales you have per day, per month, per week, whatever. The sales in number of units. This is actually key for if you're trying to order vinyls for your next album release. If you've sold vinyls in the past, you want to know how many did you sell per day? How many did you sell overall? That way you can kind of adjust and formulate how many you might need for your next vinyl release. Conversion rates of product pages. So obviously how well your pages are converting. So if you send somebody to a landing page or straight to a sales page, you want to know how well that's doing. Conversion rates of ad campaigns. So obviously if you're running an ad from Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, and it goes to something, you want to know what percent of people actually did that action that you were trying to, accomplish. You want to know your daily and monthly ad spend as well. So if you're spending, $30 a day on Instagram ads, you want to know if it's actually working, first of all, but you also want to know how much you're spending overall. And if you're doing that in a month, it's close to $900, maybe up to close to $1,000, depending on how much you do on a fluctuation basis. But you want to make sure that you're getting your return on your ad spend. You also want to know your daily and monthly profit after ads, which is something key that most people don't even know how to calculate. So that's something you definitely want to make sure you know how to do. You also would likely want to know what your customer acquisition cost and your lifetime customer values are, if possible. So customer acquisition cost, again, remember that's how much money it takes you to essentially spend on ads to get that customer to buy something. You can also have that lead acquisition cost, which we've talked about before. So those are a couple of things that you want to definitely know. But lifetime customer value is also very good to know. If they've purchased multiple things from you, it'd be great to know, like, hey, I spent $10 on an ad to get them on the list. And then since they've been on the list, they purchased $300 worth of stuff. That's very good information. It's not always easy to track. Some reporting metrics from some of your dashboards, maybe like on WooCommerce or maybe even Shopify, can show you that lifetime customer value a lot easier. You also want to know like monthly email subscribers. So like how many people are added, how many people go away. You want to know how many social media followers you have, and you can track that once a month. Again, Spotify streams per month, monetization of any ad or email launch campaigns or anything like that. Metrics from any contests or giveaways. Those are great to know. So that way you can say, hey, we did this from this particular contest. So you know if it was good or if it was not a success. Launch metrics from anything such as pre-orders, pre-saves, anything like that. So that way you can actually, help yourself to understand if you hit your goals, right? You also want to keep track of your Patreon subscribers as well. Pretty much anything that you deem as meaningful to your income and expenses and also to the growth of your music career, those are things that you want to track. Basically, it's anything you want to know that's causing actual growth. And what is a waste of time? So if it's not bringing any income, sales, or even if it's just not providing growth, you'll know that it's a waste of time. Once you know what metrics are useful, you will know exactly what to focus on each week. So the clarity of what you need to do for your week will actually be very clear. Here are a few key metrics explained. So conversion rate. A conversion rate is simply the percentage of people who buy something or take an action or make a purchase versus the total number of people who saw or clicked on the ad or page. So if you ran an ad that had 200 people click on your ad, but only 20 of them actually bought or took the action you wanted them to take, then your conversion rate would be 20 out of 200 people. Or roughly 10%. If it's straight to a sale, it might be even less than 10% from an ad. But if it's straight to like a giveaway or a contest, it should be better than 10%. Customer acquisition cost is simply explained as how much money it takes you on average to create a buying customer from a particular campaign. So an ad, a post, or whatever. So if you ran an ad for $150 and got 15 buyers, then your customer acquisition cost would be $10 per customer on that ad campaign. If your profit margin for anything that you're trying to run there is less than $10, you've lost money. If it's $10 or around $10, you're breaking even. If it's much higher than $10, your profit margin, then you would have made money on that campaign. The typical cost to acquire a customer directly from social media is anywhere between $10 to $20 per customer. Again, that's a typical cost. This is why I mentioned it is likely a waste of money to try to sell directly on social media unless it's for an album launch or for maybe possibly driving tickets to a concert or something like that. And the reason why you do it for an album launch is because it helps drive visibility as well as some sales. Let's talk about lifetime customer value. That's essentially just the total amount of money a single customer has paid you for your goods and services in the entire lifetime of knowing you or being on your purchasing list or whatever. This is not always easy to track, but if you can track it, you should. Basically, if a customer purchases anything from you, then they are much more likely to purchase something else from you later. That is a key point that you should know. If somebody's bought something from you before, they are much more, like thousands of percentages more likely to buy something from you again than somebody who has not ever bought from you before. You may not be able to connect, concert ticket sales to customers automatically, but you can definitely look in your online store reports for customers in cities where you will be playing shows. So like, hey, I wonder how many customers on my online store are from Cincinnati. So then you can go look it up and you can actually try to tag them in your ConvertKit account as, Cincinnati or whatever. If you haven't got that Google form process to basically find out their city right away, then, obviously you can check that out through your online store for people who have purchased from you. And then you can send them specific emails targeted to that tag saying, hey, I'm coming to Cincinnati. Would love to get you into the show. Get this early bird ticket price of $10 or $12 or whatever it is. So that way they can actually pre-purchase those tickets and that you'll have a certain amount of people show up. There are literally an endless amount of uses for knowing your metrics and understanding how customers interact with you and how, essentially fans want to buy from you and how they take actions. Knowing these metrics can make you, basically unlimited in your knowledge to be able to scale your music career. You also have to analyze them and make decisions from them, though. So here's an example of making decisions from metrics. We're just going to give you 2 examples here. So number one, if your profit margin on a vinyl is $15 and you run an ad to try to sell more copies of it, so your profit margin is $15. You might sell it for $25, right? And maybe it costs you around $8 to $10. So if your profit margin is $15 and you run an ad, the customer acquisition ends up being $25 per customer. Okay, so to run an ad to get somebody to buy your vinyl, say you got 10 customers or whatever, or 100 customers, it doesn't matter. But the customer acquisition cost ends up being $25 per customer. Do you keep that ad running? So again, profit margin's $15, but just to get a customer to buy something, it's costing you $25 in ads. No, you're definitely not going to want to keep doing that because you're losing money basically every single time you do it. You're losing $10 per customer. The only way you would keep it running is if you're okay with losing that money to obtain customers or to obtain visibility or whatever. But in general, it's got to be a pretty limited budget that you're going to set for something like this. So let's talk about a different version. Same kind of thing here though, but just slightly different. So if your profit margin on a vinyl, hoodie, sticker, poster combo is $45, you bundle it all together, maybe you sell it for $80, $90, whatever, and you run an ad to try to sell more of them, and the customer acquisition cost ends up being $25 per customer. Do you keep running that ad? So again, you might not be making as much money as you want, right? So your profit margin now goes from $45 per customer down to $20 on this ad campaign. Do you keep running it? Well, likely you might. If it's moving inventory and making some money after ad costs, which is $20 per bundle, it may be worth it because you're also collecting fans' emails. So you're growing your music career, right? And that's one of the objectives of basically anything that you do with any campaign is growing your music career, growing your fan base. So keep track of the metrics that are important to you, analyze them every month to see what's going well and what's not, and scale up the stuff that works and stop doing stuff that doesn't. This is how you take guessing out of the equation. You basically just keep testing stuff and then you don't have to guess at what works. So let's go over to the sales metric demo with Social Media Tracker. I want to show you this because it's actually located right below this video. But here we are right now at the DIY Rock Career Sales Metrics and Ad Performance Tracking Worksheet. First thing you're going to do is create a copy of this so that way you can have your own. So just follow the directions on the read first things here. You're going to have a few worksheets over the course of this program. So I highly encourage you to create your own copies of these and actually fill them out. So I just wanted to show you a few things on here. All right, so if I'm actually looking at the example product metrics sheet here, you can see I've put in my daily sales for January 1st. And this isn't by year, so like it doesn't say January 1st, 2023 or whatever. So you can use it for any year and you can just create a new one next year. So like you just copy and paste this for the next 5 years or whatever, and you can do that. So for January 1st, let's just say I've got $75 in sales. I sold 3 units. Now, I also had 50 people land on that page. On that means that out of 50 people, 3 people bought. That conversion rate is 6%. So obviously, if you doubled it, that's 100, and then that's 6%. That's easy math. And you can see I spent $15 on the actual daily spend for my ads. I also have to put in my cost of goods. If you actually put it in the first cell here, it'll actually copy down to all the rest of the cells. So like if I change this to $9 here, it will change all the way down. If I put it at $5.50, it'll change all the way down to the bottom. So just make sure to fill in that first cell. You actually don't have to do this every day unless the price of the product changes. So then you can actually change it later in the year, obviously. So let's just go back to like say $7.50, and this could be for a vinyl. So if I spent $15 on ads and I got $75 in sales, and my cost of goods are basically this times this, right? So $7.50 times 3. It's actually going to come out and tell you right here that your total daily profit after ads is $37.50. So you did good. You actually came out on top. Now, if your ad spend was, say, something like $45, you only made $7.50. Or if it was $50, you only made $2.50. If you spent $55, you're actually losing money, right? So you can actually tell on how much ad spend you have, depending on how it's working, how well it's going to go. So if you actually got these numbers from $15 in ad spend and you're actually making daily profit, so then you might think I can actually take $30 in daily ad spend and just double everything. And then you double your profit or daily profit after ads, right? So if you said, okay, let's just test that theory out and let's do 30. And then you actually got $150 in sales, 100, still at 6%. So 6% conversion rate, assuming it's going to be roughly around that, you would see that you now have $75. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like that every time, but let's just say you had $130 in sales or something like that. You had 5 sales and you had still 100 here. So you have less conversion rate, but you're still making $62 after ads, right? So you can actually see it start to add up. Now, as you come down here, it'll actually total everything up for you. So you've actually made $175 in profit. Now, if we just kind of continue all this out, and let's just do this for a month so that way you can see how it looks here. If you actually just continued that, if you actually got this rate of 5% conversion rate, which isn't great, but it's also not bad. I mean, it could be worse, especially on an online store that you're not running qualified ads to. It could be down as low as 1 or 2%. So it's not always going to be this high. But if you actually could get these numbers, you would actually make close to $2,000 in income just from your product one per month. And that's profit after ads. So that's essentially income. Now that would be split between a band if you're in a band, or you might, take half of that, because that's what we say, take half, put it in income, the other 50% reinvest into the business, right? So then you could take the other 50% because you have cost of goods. So if you actually want to know how much cost of goods you've spent, you'd have to total all that up. Take that 750 times this amount here. Maybe you could actually total that up for here, which I can do right now. So it'll tell you right there, your cost of goods for the month was $1,155. So you probably want to reinvest at least $1,155 back into that business, right? And then you can take the other $800 and to put that into your band savings account or whatever. And essentially you can see how that all works out, right? So if you just ran these numbers for a month and say you only got 154 products sold in a month, you can still make roughly $2,000 in profit. So that's pretty good. I would say that's a pretty successful month, especially just for one product. Now, if you have multiple products like t-shirts, vinyls, everything else, and you can make even $500 in profit a month from each one, you can start to see how this starts to build, right? You can start to scale from just the things that you sell on your store or on your, Bandcamp or whatever it is. So create as many products as you have and just make sure you track these things every single day. It helps to understand what's working well. If something's doing like really low conversion rate, like 0.01% or something like that, then you know that that's probably not a high quality product or something that people really want. So you probably shouldn't send ads at it. You should probably just let it sell out and then discontinue it, right? So if something converts really low, that's a good thing to discontinue usually. So obviously, like I said, copy and paste as many of these over as you want. And then the other thing here was the social media and streaming metrics. So obviously count how many Facebook followers you have in January. Then obviously make sure however many, just do it on the same day. So like first of the month, hopefully the first of the month or the 31st of the month. So that way you're tracking it on the exact same day all the time. Your IG followers, your Spotify streams, Patreon subscribers, YouTube subscribers, email subscribers, and then make any notes here. So like obviously if you have, 560 and then 2,500. So then the next month you might have 800 and 3,300. You'd then say, ran a contest in February for a new bundle, whatever, right? That way you know how you actually got that increase in subscribers. So you'd fill these out as well. But I'm just saying, like, just as an example, you would know why you got a decent increase between the months, especially in February, which is a slightly shorter month. But maybe you do get 300 more Facebook followers or 240 or whatever. And maybe you do get 800 new Instagram followers a month. It could happen. So again, it could just be attributed to you doing more content. It could be a lot of things, but make notes there so that way you know what's working and what's not. Because otherwise, if you don't make these notes, you'll think, well, why in March did I only get to 840, and why in March did I only get to 300 or 3350 or something like that? So your growth didn't grow very far. If you didn't make that note about that contest, you'd think that March was a flop and February is just a really good month. It's not the month that matters. It's what you did in those months, right? So make sure that you make notes about that stuff. All right, so let's take action. Download the monthly metrics spreadsheet below this video. You can create your own, but I'd highly recommend just using this one that we've created. Track your metrics on the first day of each month or more, depending on the metrics. So obviously with the product ones, you want to track them every day. With the more streaming social media stuff, you can do that every month. Analyze the metrics to see what is working for you and what's not. And then make decisions to do more of what is working and to stop doing what is not working. So if you're spending too much on ads, maybe you want to reduce that. Or if you're doing really well with those ads, keep doubling them up, tripling them up to see if they work better.